Well, hello, my good friends. This is going to be one of the videos where I talk about a metaphor. The last video we talked about a metaphor was Chinese food. Kitchen Table TCG. My name is Louie. If you're just joining us here on the channel, this is going to be a metaphorical video. One time, a long time ago, I did a metaphor comparing Arcane Rising sealed booster boxes to the leftover Chinese food in your refrigerator. Today, we're going to talk about Christmas. And you can put any holiday that you want here, but in my world, it was Christmas and Christmas morning, and you open up all your gifts. You got all the gifts and all the presents you wanted, and you're just sitting with all the gifts that you asked it, everything you asked for from Santa, and you've just gotten it all. And as I was talking to Mitch from the Midtown Merchant today and George from Compete Sports, I was telling them, like, I just have this anxiety today. Like, today's, 2 or 3 days after this big announcement. The market has completely radicalized and completely radically changed as a result of the print run numbers going from what we thought was 22,000 for a box of Alpha Flesh and Blood to now what we know is 16,667 boxes. I was just telling them, like, I just had this anxiety, this like I don't know what to do. Like, I can make 15 videos tonight. I'm so excited. Like, there's just so many things to talk about. And what I felt like, I told Mitch, I was like, man, I just feel like it's Christmas. I got everything that I ever dreamed of. And now I just don't know what to play with. Like, I just don't know what toys to enjoy. I just don't know what to do. And so I thought what we'd do today is I wanted to give you a little bit about my heart. And I want to say a couple things. And this is kind of like it's going to be a little bit of a, I'm just so excited because there's so many things that are about to happen in Flesh and Blood. And if today is Christmas, in like a week we have New Year's Eve. And we have the brand new, fresh year. And I'm not just talking about Monarch. I'm talking about the things that are going to happen in our community. And you can just feel the excitement pumping up. But right now, today, like, we just got everything we've ever wanted. I remember when I first got into Flesh and Blood, a buddy of mine said, hey man, these Arcane Rising boxes from Flesh and Blood, they're like the first edition of the second set. And the Alpha boxes are selling for like $600. You should buy a couple of the Arcane Rising boxes because they're only sitting at like $125. I was like, okay, like maybe. And I remember like Rudy had pumped Flesh and Blood, and I didn't believe another trading card game could survive. And I played all those games and whatever, and I was like, no. And then I was like, all right, fine, like I'll buy a case of Arcane Rising first edition. Like I'll do it, like whatever you want, like whatever you say, I'll do it. So I bought a case. I think it was like $600. I was like, that's a lot of money. And then I was like, but maybe one day. He was like, but dude, like imagine if it goes to $600 a box, like you'll 6x your money, it'd be crazy, whatever. So like, man, I was like, okay, fine. And then I was just like, that was just a sealed investment. That's how I got started in Flesh and Blood, was just as like a sealed speculation, right? And then I went to my LGS and was like, hey man, can you get any of this new set, Crucible of War? And he's like, yeah. And so like the next week, I went and I opened my first box of Crucible of War, and I pulled, these are the very cards that I pulled. I pulled 2 cold foils. I actually started watching Chris Sayers on the Flesh and Blood Unseals group, and I was like, dude, these cold foil things are pretty cool. I want to try to get some. So I bought a box of Crucible of War. I got these cold foils, and I remember, like, I distinctly remember putting this Gambler's Glove on TCG Player for $200. And I remember being like, if that ever goes up to $200, I'm selling it, because that's expensive. Like, that's a lot of money. Like, I paid $75 for the box. I can get $200 for this card? That's crazy. And I think at the time they were selling for like $45. I remember just dreaming and being like, can you imagine, like, if the game actually gets some traction, what the values could be? And then a lot of stuff happened, and I pulled the card off because it started to actually get close to it. And I started really getting in, like, I started buying more Crucible of War boxes. I started just like dreaming, like, man, what if this thing starts going? Like, what if this starts taking off? So then I was like, oh, I might as well, I'm opening the boxes, I might as well start recording videos, right? And so you guys remember, I just had this stupid, some of you who are here, shout out to those of you who are here when I had like 35 subscribers, right? Like, I had this crappy camera, I was open, I had no clue what I was doing. I didn't even know that you couldn't play sealed with Crucible of War. I had no clue what I was doing. I remember being like, yeah, but what if I pull something cool? What if I pull a shard, right? And then, you know, Crucible of War seal boxes kind of started drying up, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I bought an alpha box for $800. I was like, I love this game. I love the cards are beautiful. I just want, like, what if the alpha box goes to $2,000? Like, oh my gosh. Like, oh, and I like panicked. I was like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And the whole time it was just all this excitement. I just kept selling Magic the Gathering because every time I opened the cards, I just loved it. I played like 2 games. I was like, I didn't really understand the game, honestly. I didn't at the time. I was like, I didn't understand it. But I was like, even though I don't understand it, it was so much fun. And then I started taking the word that the Crucible of War was, you know, it was drying up. And so then I did my first video of like talking to the camera. And that's where for me things really changed. And I started to just get excited about the future of Flesh and Blood. And I started thinking, man, what could happen? What could happen if this game, if this community of people get behind each other and support each other, and if we help build decks for people, and you know, we see all over the place people are building decks and giving them away to new people, and now that I've gotten involved in the community, what I've realized is that this game is here to stay. And that this game has depth, not just in the collectability, not just in the investment side of things, but the players who play the game. Every game is so much fun. We just did a Discord server game in my Discord server, and like people just love playing, like the joy that comes from playing the game. And that's something that I identified. And man, I just decided that I just wanted to give it my all on the channel. I wanted to really pursue this whole thing. And today, this market stuff that's happening, it's starting to feel, and I'm sure you have your story, right? Like you have your own story that looks a little bit like this. Maybe you didn't start a YouTube channel or whatever, but you started buying up things, or investing things, or just collecting things, and it just really made you. And then like today, it feels like it's here. But here's what I want to say to you: today is just Christmas, and New Year's Eve is coming. And New Year's Day is coming. And I'm telling you right now, I've been trying to tease out some hints. I've been trying to tease out some things. There are big players in the game, and things are going to start going crazy. And here's what I want to remind you. Please, 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 do not lose sight that this is just a trading card game, and that there is more to life than this. But don't get me wrong, like this is all super exciting. Like, this is all awesome, and it's super exciting. But again, like, we've got cardboard rectangles here. You know what I mean? The biggest part, the most important thing about this whole thing is that this is a community of people, and you get to interact with other people. And that's what I love. Like, out of all the things that I said, out of arcane boxes going from when I bought them $120 to they're selling for $4,000 now. Or I just saw that the alpha boxes are selling for like $6,000 on eBay. Like, out of all that stuff, what drew me to the game was the idea of playing together in the flesh and blood, where Magic the Gathering was going on. Everything's digital, everything's arena, blah, blah, even in the middle of the pandemic, right? This is what, man, in the middle of a pandemic, Magic the Gathering moved everything to arena and was like, go to that. And in the meantime, Flesh and Blood did something like skirmishes that brought the community together. Even though we couldn't actually be there in the Flesh and Blood, they brought us all together over Discord servers and over games. They required the local game stores because they believe in the idea of in the Flesh and Blood. And man, if there's a single thing that makes me excited about this game, it is the idea that you and I are able to connect with each other in the Flesh and Blood online and build relationships over this common thing that, like, at the end of the day, like, I was thinking about this. What happens if the market collapses? What would I do, right? And my answer to that question, I would sit here and draft this box of alpha. If this alpha box goes to zero tomorrow, from $8,000 to zero, I would not even think twice. I would call my buddy Robbie up. You saw him on the video yesterday. I'd say, hey, buddy, do you want to draft the box of alpha? And we would sit here and play the crap out of the game because it's that much fun. And, you know, George from Compete Sports, we did a conversation the other day. And, you know, he said that people at his store started buying up boxes of Alpha and Arcane Rising because they were afraid that the game wouldn't make it because they've seen all these other TCG games, and they wanted to have product to draft in the future. They wanted to have product to keep playing the game because they love the game that much. And that's what brings me here. Like, I'm just so excited about the idea of like meeting together in the flesh and blood. And that's what gets me excited about like post-COVID, and as we move away from this stuff, and as big announcements happen in the next 3 months, and as things and people start communicating, and stuff starts coming out of the woodwork, and more people start entering in our community, and Monarchs, and I mean, we haven't even talked about Monarch, right? Monarch's gonna come out. We're gonna have spoiler cards. It's gonna be crazy, right? Like the next 3 weeks are gonna be an absolute like crazy 3 weeks, and then it's gonna get even crazier because again, New Year's is coming. Not actual New Year's, but flesh and blood New Year's is coming, and it's not just Monarch. And you know, all this stuff is going to build so much excitement. I just want to encourage you, don't lose sight of the importance of community. Don't lose sight of the importance of your integrity in our community, and of respecting each other, and respecting trades, and respecting when you buy or sell a card. And it's going to be great. And now the last thing I want to say is all these people are going to come into our community, and it is so, so, so important that we don't lose sight of who we are. Again, this is not, like, this is just a piece of paper, but what it represents is the idea of a community that we can all gather around this one thing. And the best communities in the entire world, the very best communities, are those who are the most open and most welcoming to new people, to teach them how to play, to put together. I've got commons. Look at this. This is boxes of commons from our case openings and box openings. Like this is like nothing. Like there's people who are actually building decks. Like I'm lazy. Like I'm just saying, hey, here's some commons. There's deck lists, right? Like people are actually building commons and building decks. Like we have to do things to help people get involved in flesh and blood. As soon as you get your COVID shot, as soon as your area is free to go, like go invite people to your LGS, ask your LGS to play stuff. Like it is so important that we don't lose sight that this is not just money, right? Like this is not just money. This represents a community, and it represents a game that people can get behind in order to connect with one another. And let's not forget that connection with one another is sometimes the most important thing, even more important than money, even more important than the finances of flesh and blood, is the idea that we can be a place for all people to come and gather. We can be respectful. We can be encouraging to one another. And so I just want to say, as we get to, like, I know and I can see in my mind what's going to happen over the next 3 months. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be awesome. I feel like it's my obligation to like encourage all of us and myself, and to remind, again, I say this all the time. Anything I say to you is just things that I'm saying to myself all the time, like all day. It's like, I have to remember that it's not just about money. It's also about people coming into the community and welcoming them and being excited with them and teaching them how to play. And anyway, I'm super excited I'm calling it Flesh and Blood New Year's. It's going to happen. I don't know when it's going to happen, but Flesh and Blood New Year's, it's going to be this complete shift in the world. I mean, it just started. We just had the shift in the market, but the shift in the market is just the beginning. We had a shift in the market, and now we're going to have a shift in the whole community. It's going to be great. Hey, remember, be kind to the people around you. I'm stoked. I hope you're still watching.